with a little bit of an abbreviation. For prayers. And then we'll go into breathing meditation. I'll give a little bit of instruction for other people. Breathing meditation. Welcome to that. Okay, today we start on page 7 with refuge and bodhicitta. In the Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, until I seek refuge, through merit from giving and the rest. To may all may I become Buddha, may I become Buddha, may all sentient beings have happiness and its causes, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes, may all sentient beings never be parted from sorrowless bliss, may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from bias, attachment, and hatred. Free from bias, attachment, and hatred. We'll be going to page 35, and we'll do the Chodron offering. I will be doing it in Tibet. Tibet is my English version of singing it. Well. Sit cross-legged, and then your hands, the right and the left, and your thumbs touching, like this. You can't see. And then put down your hands in your lap. Sit up straight. And lower your eye. And lower your eyes. And for a moment, feel your body sitting here on the cushion. And if there's any tension in any parts of your body, then release that tension. Become aware of your breath, letting your breathing pattern be exactly the way it is. So don't force your breath in any way. And put your attention on the breath, so that you really experience everything that's happening as you inhale
different sensations as you exhale. If there's a pause between one breath and the next, look at that and experience that. So just stay with your breath. If you get distracted by a sound or a thought or something else, just notice that. Don't get mad at yourself. But just notice and then bring your attention back home to the breath. And by keeping your attention on one object, in this case the breath, then the mind begins to settle down. Then the mind begins to settle down and become calmer. So let's do that for a few minutes. So let's approach sharing the afternoon together with an attitude of kindness towards each other, with curiosity and eagerness to learn, and especially with a wish to identify and learn the antidotes to disturbing emotions, and learn how to increase our good qualities such as love, compassion, wisdom, generosity. And let's do all of this not only for our own happiness, but the benefit of all living beings, so we can contribute to the welfare of the world. So spend a moment and make that your motivation for being here today. Okay, and open your eyes. Okay. So, yesterday we had a fun time, didn't we? We talked about anger and apologizing and forgiving, and we got a little bit of jealousy in there and a few other things. So, today I thought what we might work on a bit is partiality and the way that we divide people into groups and discriminate against them. Okay? So when we recite the four measurables, the first one, they all, the last one, depends which version you're reciting. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Okay? So attachment is where we really like somebody, and those people are our friends. Anger is when we really are unhappy about what somebody did, and just for the sake of ease in speaking, we'll call those people enemies, even though you may not consider them full-fledged enemies. And then towards everybody else, we usually feel kind of neutral, right? Yeah, neutral or indifferent. Okay. So let's do a little exercise, and so that we can research why we feel these different way towards these three different groups of people: friends, enemies, and strangers. Okay? So close your eyes for a minute and think of a friend, or a very dear one. It could be a relative too, but somebody you really care a lot about, somebody you're quite attached to. And then just ask yourself, why am I attached to that person? There's no right or wrong answers. You're just researching how your mind works. So when you have a person you're attached to in mind, then just ask yourself gently, why am I attached to that person? And see what kind of reasons come up. think of somebody that you have anger or hatred towards. Somebody you really don't like. And ask yourself, why am I angry, or why do I hate that person? And again, there's no right or wrong answers. Just listen to what your mind says. And then think of a stranger, somebody that, you just see on the street or on the bus or wherever, in the store. And ask yourself, why am I indifferent towards that person? Or why am I apathetic towards that person? Again, no right or wrong answers, just see what your mind says. Why am I indifferent towards that person? Okay, and then open your eyes. Okay, so why are you attached to your friends? Yeah.
They help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so they help me.
Yeah.
What else?
They make me feel good about myself.
Yeah, they make me feel good about myself.
Feel like you can get something that you're missing in yourself.
You feel what?
That they're going to give something that I feel like I'm missing in myself.
Okay, yeah, so they fill a need that we have, something that we feel
Sounds
is
good.
missing in ourselves.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Share experiences.
Oh yeah, we can share experiences. Yeah, let's move back here. Yeah.
They support you with the peace.
Yeah, they support us, we're peaceful. What else? What? Oh, they introduced me to the Dharma, or they introduced me to other things that I enjoy?
Well, mainly I didn't know nothing about Dharma, and that's what they introduced me to.
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I feel that I can be myself with them.
Okay. So you feel safe with them?
So I can feel, yeah, I can be the bad me and the good me with them.
Yeah. Okay, so you can just relax and be who you are. Yeah. Okay, uh-huh.
They inflate our egos.
Yeah, they do that too. Mm-hmm. Okay, now how about the people that you're angry at? your enemies. Why? Why do you have those feelings towards them?
They try to boss me around.
Okay. They try to boss me around, yeah.
They threaten my ego.
They threaten me. Mm-hmm.
Their opinions are very different than mine.
Oh, yeah. They have all these bad opinions.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They disturb my peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. They disturb my peace of mind. What else?
You know how to push my buttons.
Oh, yeah. They know how to push our buttons very well. Okay, what else?
They view me in a different way than I view myself.
Okay, yeah, they view me in a different way than I view myself, usually a worse way. Yeah. If they view me in a better way, they would be in the friend category. Okay, and what about the people that you feel indifferent towards?
I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, we don't know anything about them. What else? Uh-huh.
Nothing to be gained.
Yeah, nothing to be gained, nothing to be lost. Mm-hmm. What else? Yeah?
Just don't see them often.
Yeah, we don't see them very often. Not so much contact.
They don't touch any of your feelings.
Yeah, they don't touch our feelings. But we almost don't even see them as having feelings. Yeah, we walk by them on the street. Yeah, and you know, you say you're sorry when you hit somebody, but you know, you say if you hit a fire hydrant, you know, you also say you're sorry. You know? Yeah. Okay. So in this discussion, what word do you keep hearing?
Me.
Me, I, my, mine. Oh, our mantra again. Me, I, my, mine. Me, I, my, mine. That mantra keeps coming, doesn't it? Yeah. So when we look closely, we see that we put people in the friend category because they do things we like, right? Things that we're in favor of that make us feel good. So that's the definition of a friend, isn't it? Yeah, they do things I like, and support me, like, you know, all those things that we said. You know, the enemy category, we put them in when they do things we don't like. When they threaten us, when they interfere with our happiness, when they get in our way, when they devalue us, whatever. And then the friend category, we just throw everybody else in because they don't influence us one way or the other. Okay? Now, this is how we get friends, enemies, and strangers. But when we think, you know, our usual perspective on friends, enemies, and strangers is not that we discriminate people and put them in these boxes, but that the friend is really from their own side a wonderful, talented, precious, considerate, loving, kind person, right? From their own side. And our enemy from their side is obnoxious and degrading and contemptuous and despicable from their side. Right? And a stranger is like blank. Okay? So we look and we think, okay, people are friends, we think of friends, enemies, and strangers as being in those categories because of characteristics they have from their side. But actually, it's us putting them in those categories, and we put them in those categories based on how they relate to the center of the universe, me. Okay? So we think our friends have good qualities from their own side. But that's actually because they show their good qualities to us. that we call them friends. You know, they're kind and considerate and pleasing and, you know, cooperative to us, right? If they are kind and considerate and pleasing and cooperative to somebody we don't like, to our adversary, do we still consider them a friend? If they're aiding and abetting the enemy? Yeah. Yeah. We might get jealous. We're not so happy. All of a sudden, this person who hasn't changed from their side has changed in our opinion. And they are now no longer firmly in the friend side. They are going towards the enemy camp. Okay. What happens if, you know, our enemies is because, you know, they're rude and nasty and threatening and everything like that. So they're showing their faults to us, and that's why we don't like them. Yeah. What about if our enemies showed their good qualities to us? Then what?
They become our friends.
Yeah, they become our friends. What happens if our enemy then, you know, harms our other enemies? You know, joins on our side to see that person is awful, another person is awful. Then what? Then they're our friend. So if they show their bad qualities to me, they're an enemy. If they show their bad qualities to somebody else I don't like, then they're a friend.
Or at least an ally.
Yeah. Okay. Then, you know, okay. Does anybody here have friends that they still have when they were in first grade? A few of you? Yeah. Have they been in the friend category the whole time?
Yeah.
Have they ever gone into the stranger category for a while where you lost touch with them? Okay. So they can go from the friend category into the stranger category. Yeah. Some of your first grade buddies, have they gone into the enemy category? Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Okay. How about somebody who was an enemy when you were in school? You know, sometime in elementary school. Have they become a friend because you met them in a different situation? Yeah. Have some of your previous enemies become strangers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about people who were strangers when you were little? Have some of them become friends? Have some of them become enemies? Yeah. So these categories are in constant flux, aren't they? Yeah. But at any one moment, we don't feel like they're in flux. We feel like somebody is a good person from their side. Always has been, always will be. Yeah. Somebody else is a real idiot from their side. Always has been, always will be. But in actual fact, these roles are in constant flux. Yeah. So they're changing all the time, number one. And number two, they are totally subjective based on how people relate to me. Yeah. So based on how they relate to me, I judge and evaluate them, and then think that from their side, independent of me, they are good people or bad people. But they're not good people or bad people independent of me. It's because I've judged and evaluated them based on how they react, how they interrelate with me. Okay. So, do we have real good reasons for having friends and enemies? What do you think? Do we have sound reasons for having attachment, having anger? Not very, do we? The whole something's totally subjective and very fickle. Very fickle. Slight change in circumstances and our feelings will radically change about somebody. And they'll flip from friend to enemy like that, or enemy to friend like that. And this holds true not only on a personal level, but also on a group level, on an international level. In World War II, Japan and Germany were enemies. Today they're friends. Yeah. Did we have any friends during World War II who are now enemies? Who?
Russia?
Oh yeah, Russia was our ally in World War II. Yeah, now an enemy. It's interesting, isn't it? It's the same, whether we're talking international politics or just, common relationships. And the whole thing is 100% objective. And yet, not realizing that, we think people are like that from their own side, independent of how they relate to me. Are we a little bit foolish, do you think? Do you think sometimes we're a bit foolish? Yeah, we are, aren't we? Yeah. Maybe confused also. Yeah. And so when you think in your life, this discrimination into friend, enemy, and stranger, does it bring you some difficulties in your life? Having friends, enemies, and strangers? Okay. Well, what problems does having enemies bring you?
To make you angry.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. They make me angry. Oh, thank you. I'm going to go on a tangent.
Thanks, Marianne.
Yeah, they make me angry. Okay? My anger is due to them. They made me angry. Yeah, I am angry because of them. My anger is their responsibility. Right? Yeah, when you're angry at somebody, my anger is their responsibility because they made me angry. Okay? It's almost as if when they're talking, together with the sound waves, there's anger coming. And then the anger with the sound waves comes and it hits us and we got the virus. They made me angry. It's all their fault.
And what are they going to do about it?
Yeah, right. And what are they going to do about it? Because my anger is not my responsibility. It's their responsibility. So they're the ones who have to apologize. Right? They're the ones that have to realize that they did something wrong. Yeah. Not me. I'm sweet, innocent, charming, benevolent, open-minded. Me. Yeah. Dealing with this person who is...
I'm so right about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Look, I'm never wrong. Wrong is what the other person is, not me. Okay, so I made them angry, so they better apologize. Yeah. And they really better apologize. And it better be a good apology. Not one of these, oh, I'm sorry. They need to grab from that door, crawling on their hands and knees up here, crying, culpa mia, culpa mia. I did something that made you angry. It's all my fault. Forgive me. And then we can sit there. Well, I'm glad you realized. After all I've suffered, after everything I've put up with, what you did, glad you realized it and you're sorry. Let me think about it. We like that, huh? Yeah? Like, let's rub it in a little bit, you know? Let's make them suffer so they really get it, that it's all their fault. Aren't we wonderful people?
Does anybody put up with us?
Yeah, sometimes you look at it and it's amazing that anybody else ever puts up with us. Don't you think? Yeah? So, do other people really make us angry?
No.
You say no. You look like you're not sure. Yeah. You think they make us angry?
I probably have a part in it.
Do you think maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe. You're not sure.
No.
Oh, okay, let me ask you a question. Okay? If somebody comes into the room, what's your name?
John.
John. Okay. So and you're Sharon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody comes into the room and looks at Sharon and says, Sharon, you idiot. You know, I was counting on you to do something. You completely dropped the ball. You know, you really disappointed me and you're totally unreliable. I mean, you're driving me crazy. And you're Sharon's friend, right? What are you going to say to Sharon?
Wow, Sharon, that was hard to hear.
Yeah. But you'd say, hey.
I would be, I don't know, I would listen to her and I would feel bad for her that she would have to experience this in front of a lot of people. Maybe I would feel bad.
Yeah.
Maybe even that she may have heart. Ownership in it.
And you might even say to her, you know, well, you know, just think about what, you know, what they said. If what that person said is true, it may not be. And, you know, that person's upset and angry and they're venting on you. You might say that. So, like, don't take it so personally. Yeah, you try and console her, you know. It's like, you know, it's not such a big deal. That person's out of sorts. Don't worry about it. Okay. Now, if that same person came in the room and instead of looking there, looked here, and instead of saying Sharon, said John, and said the exact same thing, John, you idiot. You're totally unreliable. I was counting on you and you let me down. Then what?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, oh, wow. You feel a lot different, right? Yeah, you feel a lot different. Like, this is a big thing. How dare somebody speak to me like that?
I would still feel bad for my friend.
Oh, yeah.
I'd feel bad.
Yeah,
You know?
you'd feel bad. But you'd also,
angry.
yeah. But you wouldn't get angry at the other person. You would just kind of say, you know, you'd console her in one way or
I
another.
might.
Yeah.
I'd be angry.
Yeah. But if that person says the same thing to you,
It would be different, sure.
oh yeah, it's very different. It's national catastrophe. Right? It's like, Sharon, you know, don't worry about it, get over it, you know, it's not a big deal. He said that to me. Oh.
It also depends if the person owns it right then, you know. If the person says, yeah, I know I dropped the ball, I screwed up.
Yeah. No, but in general, do we own things right away?
No, some most of the time. I know it.
But many people, you know, don't even own it most of the time. Many people, it's like instant. Somebody criticizes me. How dare you talk to me like that? Nobody talks to me like that. You don't understand. You're accusing me. You're projecting your problems onto me. Okay? And yet the person said and did the exact same thing. And we have two different reactions depending upon if they're looking and saying those words to somebody else or if they're looking at and saying those words to me. Two totally different responses. So do you think we have a little bit to do with it when we get angry? It looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, I think more than a little bit, quite a bit, because we feel totally different when it's directed towards somebody else. And especially if that person walked in and said the same thing to somebody we didn't like, we would sit there and kind of smugly gloat about it. I could have told you that about that person too. Thank you for doing it. Yeah. Okay. So does anybody really make us angry? Does the anger come from them into us?
Rises from us.
It rises from within us, doesn't it? The seed of anger exists in us. When that seed of anger gets some water and some fertilizer, it grows, you know?
Grows fast.
Yeah. It's like you put, what is that? Miracle grow on your plants, you know? It's the same way, you know, just even sometimes how a person looks at you just waters that seed and our anger comes. And then we don't even own our anger and we say, you made me mad. Nobody makes us mad. Yeah, we make ourselves mad because we have the seed of anger within us. Yeah. When we're able to overcome the seed of anger, the potential from anger, then people can say and do whatever they want, and our feelings won't get hurt, and we're not going to get bent out of shape. Yeah? Do you think it's possible? Yeah? Do you think it's possible that you can, you know, that people can say whatever to you, and you can remain steady in your mind and not reactive? Yeah?
I think if you have the tools, maybe if you have my problem is when I don't say anything, I'm just angry at myself for not responding in the right way.
Right.
Say something.
Yeah. So it's possible, yeah, but we have to free ourselves from the seed of anger first. Because as long as that seed of anger is in us, then either we stuff it and don't say anything, and then get mad at ourselves for not saying anything, or stew about it and ruminate it and plan what we're going to say to the person the next time we see them. Or, so those are the imploders. Or we're an exploder and we take it out on the other person. You did this and you did that. I can't stand you.
Sometimes it might be better to put it
Yeah.
inside you.
So, hold on. Okay. So do you see kind of how our mind is working and what's going on? Huh? So this is, it's really something to think about, because when we can see this, then we realize that it's possible for us to manage our anger. Yeah? And that it's possible for us to work with our buttons. Yeah. Yesterday, for the people who weren't here, I gave the analogy when you know, our buttons get set off. It's like somebody's just walking down a corridor, yeah, and our buttons are on the side. They're bright red, yeah. They protrude halfway into the corridor, and they say, "Don't push me." And somebody's trying to walk along the corridor. You know, these are my sensitive things. Don't go near them. Don't push them. But they're right there in the middle of the corridor. So when somebody's walking by, you know, and they're so sensitive that even the breeze from somebody walking by sets them off. Okay? And those are the things that we're sensitive about. And yet we say, you pushed my buttons, you made me angry. But the buttons are whose responsibility? Who put the buttons so that they're halfway into the hallway so it's difficult to walk down the hallway? We did. Okay? So if other people pushing our buttons, you know, upsets us, we need to work with our buttons. Yeah? What are my buttons? What am I going to do about my buttons? Yeah? Because as long as we have buttons, somebody is going to push them. I don't care where you go or who you're with, somebody is going to push them. Okay? So, let's see, maybe I can tell you a couple of stories here. Once upon a time, I was, I was at a retreat with one of my, it was a group retreat with one of my teachers who was there and who was teaching. And so there was one nun in particular who, she loved to make flower arrangements, and she would make these beautiful flower arrangements to put on the altar. Yeah, and very, very nice. And she had to leave the retreat early. Okay, so that just one day after she left the retreat, I was walking back, you know, after a session, and a layperson said to me, you know, the flowers on the altar are the responsibility of the nuns. I didn't know that, you know, because this one nun had always taken care of, you know, it's the responsibility of the nuns. And the flowers look really awful now. It had been one day since they've been changed. They look really awful. And this is a horrible offering for our teacher. It's really bad form that we have these old flowers on the altar. So I'm thinking, well, go and change them, do something. You know, this is not something that belongs just to the nuns, just because one nun did it, you know. But I was getting kind of stirred up inside about it. Yeah, so I was finished walking up. As I thought about it more and more, why are they putting that? Why is she putting that on the nuns? That has nothing to do with the nuns. You know, she could go change the flowers. She could go do something. Why is she blaming me? You know, I'm just trying to have a peaceful retreat and meditate on bodhicitta. And the person, why, you know, anyway, you're supposed to keep quiet, be silent. Why is she telling me all this? Ruminate, anger, you know. So, this was Lama Zopa's, one of Lama Zopa's retreats. As you know, very little sleep on Lama Zopa's retreats. Yeah. So I knew that if I stayed angry, I was not going to get any sleep, you know, and my attachment to sleep was much more. So I had to say to myself, you know, you need to put this down. You need to put it down. And wherever you go, you're going to meet somebody who is going to blame you for something that you didn't even know about. You know, wherever I go, I don't care, you know, what retreat I go to, somebody's probably going to blame me for something. So I just have to get used to it and not be so reactive and not get so bent out of shape and just accept it, you know, and set it down. So I had to kind of talk to myself a bit here, and then I was able to be a little bit more peaceful about it. Yeah? Okay? So, you know, realizing that it wasn't her that made me angry, it was me. Yeah. Okay. Then, a few nights later, oh, this was sometimes, well, trying to get at is for whenever we get angry, you know, to instead of putting the microscope looking at the other person's faults, put the mirror and say, what is my contribution? Yeah. And then do something about my contribution. In this particular situation, you know, I hadn't neglected anything, you know, because this wasn't, you know, and there were other nuns and blah, 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 blah. But, so there was no reason for me to get angry because it wasn't like this person was noticing a fault that I had. On the other hand, yeah, so yes, like yesterday I said the example of somebody saying you have a big nose. If you have a big nose, it's true, everybody knows it, you own it. Yeah, you don't deny it. But if you don't have a big nose and somebody's accusing you or somebody's telling you you have horns on your head and you know you don't, you've checked, then, you know, again, no reason to get upset and bent out of shape. No, just realize that that person's operating from incorrect information. So whether somebody identifies a fault you have or accuses you of something you didn't do, either way, there's no real valid reason for getting angry. Okay? Shantideva said this in chapter 6 of, you know, Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. He sometimes puts it in other words, like if you can do something about a situation that you're getting criticized for, do it, and no need to get angry or worried or whatever. And if you can't do anything about it, then relax. Also, nothing to do. Okay? So the whole point here is that our relationships with other people depend on how we look at them. And our emotions towards other people depend on how we look at them, the story we tell ourselves about them. Yeah. And since the story we tell ourselves is usually so narrow and so limited because it's only taking into consideration how they're relating to me, it might be a good idea to stop telling ourselves those stories and to stop judging and evaluating people based on how they relate to me, because that's really not a very good indicator of how to have friends and enemies and strangers. Okay, it's not a good indicator, is it? It's completely off the wall. So if we think about that a lot, then we're able to drop so much discrimination, and we're able also to subdue the strong attachment for the friends that says, I want to be with them, I can't be separated from them. We're able to release some of the anger and hatred towards enemies. Yeah. And we're able to open our mind towards all the strangers and recognize that they want to be happy and don't want to suffer just like us. Yeah. So we're able to have some open-hearted care and concern for everybody. So when you get rid of the attachment and the aversion and the indifference, you don't go into a cold state of I don't care about anybody. That's certainly not something virtuous that we want to cultivate. Rather, you go into a mind state of, oh, there's no difference among them, but they all want to be happy and not suffer just like me. So I wish them all well. Yeah, I'm concerned about how everybody is, even if they're strangers. Okay, so the more we work with this and transform our mind in this way, the more open-minded we become, the calmer we become, the friendlier we become. Yeah, because our mind isn't so judging people, and our mind's not so busy wondering, are they going to like me? Am I going to like them? What are they going to think about me? What are they going to say about me? Do I fit in? Don't I fit in? You know, we're able to put down a lot of those kind of concerns because we realize that they're all self-referential and kind of useless and dumb. Yeah. So we become, you know, able to talk to a whole wide assortment of people. Yeah. I met with a friend this morning, and he was telling me that His Holiness Dalai Lama had lunch at the American Enterprise Institute. Okay, so this is one of these right-wing, radical, conservative groups. And so I was thinking about it, you know, why did His Holiness go and talk to that group? Yeah. And because some people were kind of upset about it. Also because the AEI, of course, used His Holiness and put up, you know, some quote he said, taken out of context, you know, on their website to show how he values capitalism, even though I'm yeah, because His Holiness often says he's a socialist, you know, because he wants the broader welfare for everybody. So, you know, thinking, you know, why would His Holiness go and talk, yeah, to those people? Because many of us would look like, you know, they're on that side of the street, I'm going on this side of the street, which is exactly what's happening in Congress, which is why our government doesn't work, because the people will not talk to each other, yeah, because they're too much, oh, that one's like this, I know them. You know, get them away. But, you know, knowing His Holiness, I think he went because he approaches everybody with friendliness. Yeah, and says, oh, there's some sentient beings. They want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. They invited me for lunch. I'll go have lunch with them. Yeah. And in the process, he also spoke to a group of the AEI invited about 300 high school students, you know, who were all their up and coming junior members, you know, and His Holiness spoke to those kids, you know, and answered their questions. And then he went around apparently and had pictures taken with big groups of those kids. And, you know, how much these kids were really impressed by meeting the Dalai Lama. Yeah? And hearing what he had to say and thinking of a person who has his kind of attitude. So I'm wondering, you know, in the future, how meeting His Holiness is going to affect some of these kids in the long term. So it's, you know, here is a real good example of, you know, instead of labeling them enemy or whatever, yeah, I mean, His Holiness is just friends with everybody. He visited Obama earlier this year, you know. I think it was during the same visit he saw Obama and he went to the AEI in the same visit in D.C. Kind of remarkable, huh? So I think it's important for us to have that kind of open-mindedness and to always meet people as human beings instead of as representatives of certain views that we may agree with or not agree with. Yeah. So instead of judging people according to they judge them according to what political party they belong to, what religion they are, yeah, what gender they are, what race they are, what their socioeconomic status is. There's so many different ways we can judge people. How old they are. So many ways we can judge people. But if we can retract all of that and train our mind to see, oh, it's just a sentient being who wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer, just like me. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. Yeah. We are not our political party, we are not our gender, we are not our socioeconomic class. Yeah. We are simply living beings trying to be happy and not suffer. And if we really focus and train our mind on that, then whenever we look at somebody, we can look into their heart and we can see something very, very special about them. Yeah, and we can really understand them. Okay? So you could look at George Bush, you can look at Osama bin Laden, you can look at, whoever it is, your ex-spouse, and you can just see, oh, they're just like me. Want to be happy, don't want to suffer. Yeah, and that's the bottom line, isn't it? Isn't it? And all it takes is for us to meet some of those people in just a slightly different situation. Some of the people that either were strangers or even were enemies, we meet them in a slightly different situation, and then suddenly we become friends. Okay. I lived a number of years abroad, and a number of those years were spent in India. Yeah. When you live in India, all the Ingis, Ingi means Westerner, okay? So all the Ingis get put in one group. It doesn't matter what country you're from, okay? You're all in one group. And sometimes you notice different people, because, you have dinner at the cafes and you talk to different people. And, and of course the mind starts going, they're friends, they're enemies, that guy's a nitwit, this guy's okay. The usual way we discriminate people. But, that's what's happening when you're sitting in a chai shop. Yeah, sipping your tea. But then, so there might be somebody that you think, oh my God, this one's just a dope fiend, I don't want to be with, be near them, or this one's just so angry and so discriminatory, I don't want to be near them. But then, later on when you're traveling, you may meet them again, let's say in a train station. Yeah. When you're in a train station in India, you have to hold on to your stuff. I mean literally hold on. And not just a loose grasp. Hold on. So when you have to go to the bathroom, if there's another Ingi around, you say, please, will you watch my stuff? And it's just taken for granted that everybody looks after everybody else's stuff. And when you're traveling, you just, whoever you find, you travel with them. Yeah. And so all of a sudden, this person that you might have met in the chai shop that you thought was blah, all of a sudden, you're trusting them with your passport, your traveler's checks, your luggage, your life, because you're traveling together. And you start, of course, to talk to them. And you realize, oh, they're not that bad of a person after all. Yeah? That, oh, I, saw one quality of somebody, made a stereotype, said they're always like this. And that wasn't really fair for me to do. Yeah? It's quite a remarkable experience when this happens to you. Yeah? kind of loosens the mind. A couple of days ago, earlier in this week, I was at Marquette University. I was invited there to give some talks. So I was in one classroom. So it's college, you know, college kids dressed like college kids. So one student comes in, slacks, button-down shirt, you know, short hair, polished black shiny shoes. You know, it's like, you know, this kid's, yeah, okay. And then, you know, he's tall, and he walks in, sits down, sits like this. Okay. My mind goes, oh God. Yeah, some rich kid, you know, he thinks he's the top of the world. You know, and I caught myself doing that, you know, right away. And so then I was speaking, you know, I just noticed that I did this. I kind of had to chuckle, you know, because he just fit my stereotype of some rich, spoiled kid, yeah. But I started to talk, and I was, you know, they wanted me to talk about mindfulness. I just talked about life, you know. You can't keep me on a subject. You know, because I had a half an hour or an hour with these kids. I wanted to tell them the most important thing. So I started talking. Starts listening like this. Yeah. And I realized, oh, well, there went another stereotype. Yeah. Yeah. Body language completely transformed. It happened one time in a prison. I was at San Quentin. In California, San Quentin is a heavy-duty prison. Yeah, heavy-duty. Although there's a few states in this country where I would really not like to get arrested because of their prison system. You know, California's overcrowded and all. That's but well, anyway, I don't want to go into that. Yeah, just be really careful in Texas, okay? Yeah, and Arizona. And Georgia. I don't want to even transit in Georgia anymore. Thank you very much. You know, transit in the airport. I mean, people know what Georgia did. Yeah, you can carry a gun in the airport in Georgia. In the unsecured areas, you can carry a gun. And if you just happen to forget, you know, because it was an accident, and you're going through security, it's no longer a criminal offense in Georgia. Okay, that's why I said I don't want to even transit in Atlanta airport. Anyway, I got off on the somewhere. Okay, where were we?
Prison.
Prison. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I was going to San Quentin. Okay. So I was there's a Buddhist group in San Quentin, and I do prison work in general, but the guy who runs the Buddhist group was a Zen person, and he asked me to come in and talk to the guys. And a lot of the guys are lifers, and a lot of the guys are kind of the young upstart ones who know they're not lifers. They know that they're going to. Thank you very much for coming. Take care. Bye-bye. So, the lifers always say, you know, if you're here, you know you're only going to go out. He's going to be the only thing that gets out of here. Yeah, not the rest of you. And they always look at these young upstart kids who have a thick sentence, who will get out. or whatever, you know, they have a 6-year sentence, and they say, these young upstart kids, they're so rowdy, you know, because they're just planning what they're going to do back on the streets. Okay, so I was talking to this one group, so there's some older guys there who were lifers, you know, because we have this mandatory minimum sentencing that keeps people in life for, you know, prison for life for something they did when they were 16. And there was this one guy, you know, well, a few guys who came in who I went, oh yeah, they're the young upstart kids, you know, the ones who swagger. They kind of have a swagger to them. And, you know, kind of walk in the room with their swagger and their arms folded like this and, you know, sit down. Or actually, this guy was doing this. Okay, lady, what do you have to say for yourself? So I started talking, yeah, and again, I just talked about life, and it was amazing to watch this kid. You know, this happened over a period of time. And then he asked a question. Yeah. Oh, and there goes another misconception. Yeah. So instead of like just, oh, here's somebody I can't communicate with, you know, he's blocking me out. It's like, don't even go there. You know, don't even think that. Give the person a chance. Find some way, you know, where you can talk with them. Totally amazing to me. And some of the guys I work with in prison have done the crimes that most terrify me. And yet, they're nice people. I mean, I work with them. They tell me their problems. They tell me about how they grew up, the situations they faced growing up. And I can understand how they got where they got. Yeah. There was one guy, he has 8 brothers and sisters. They all have different fathers. Yeah. He left the house when he was maybe 13 because it was so chaotic, and he started living on the streets. And one day he happened to bump into his mother on the streets, and his mother said, don't let anybody know that you're not living at home, because then I won't get the welfare check for you. That's what his mother said to him, meeting her son who's living on the streets. You know, it's like, wow, you know? You understand why somebody's in prison because, you know, brought up in those kind of circumstances. But then, you know, you also find you can have a discussion with them and talk about all sorts of stuff. You know? And it's really remarkable. And when we can break through those barriers of our own preconceptions, and try, you know, when we say, may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger, when we can start to get rid of our own bias, attachment, and anger, it can be really remarkable who we can connect with and how much we can understand and how much we can cease to be afraid. Because often when I tell people I go to prisons, they say, aren't you afraid? It's like, no. Yeah, I'm not afraid. These guys aren't going to do anything to me. They are so happy to have a volunteer come in and talk to them. They are so shocked that somebody treats them with respect. They are not going to harm me. Yeah. So I'm not afraid. I'm more afraid of the guards, actually. Yeah. So I try when I go in to be friendly with guards and chat with them, because I think, nobody really wants to. I never hear anybody say, I want to be a prison guard when I grow up. No, I don't think that's a career of choice. Yeah. So I need to have also some compassion for the prison guards. Okay, so anyway, we talked a little bit about equanimity there, a little bit more about working with emotions. We have some time for questions and comments. Let me open that up to you now.
I want to make a comment. It just struck me. And you always think may all sentient beings abide, and you should actually just say, and I. Because you kind of push it out on the others to abide in equanimity, but you kind of forget that you need to listen to your own words.
Yeah. Well, all sentient beings means all sentient beings. Are you part of all sentient beings?
Yeah.
Or does all sentient beings mean everybody minus one, who just happens to be me?
The center of the universe.
Yeah, the center of the universe, yeah. I don't fit in the group, I'm an outcast. I mean, all sentient beings means all sentient beings, doesn't it? It includes us. Yeah.
How do you hold everybody equally at the same time? You've got Bin Laden and what he did. You have, the Hitler people who did what they did. How do you hold all that?
Okay, so I'll give you kind of a double-pronged answer here. First, I'll tell you what Lama Yeshe used to say. Yeah, this was in the days of Laden. Yeah, so Lama Yeshe. So we would Lama Yeshe would be teaching us. Lama, what about Hitler? How can you love Hitler? And Lama goes, Hitler means well, dear. He means well. He's just confused. Really? Hitler means well. But, when you stop and think about it, okay, if we step outside of our usual way of thinking, he was undoubtedly very ignorant, undoubtedly very confused. But he thought that he had an answer for problems. Definitely the wrong answer, definitely the wrong approach. But it was like he was trying to solve problems. So that's what Lama meant. He means well. And then he would say, do you think everybody hated Hitler? What about his family? What about his friends? They saw him as a friend. Ooh, it was really creepy, to hear him say that. But then when you thought about it, well, yeah, nobody is all good and nobody is all bad. And then, as time went on, I remember meeting people who were the children of SS officers. Yeah. How would you feel if your dad was an SS officer? Yeah, but, their dad to them was their dad, a loving, kind, affectionate man who brought them up, who gave them what they needed in life, who protected them. Yeah. So they certainly didn't agree with what their dad did, but they saw this whole other side of this human being. And his life was more than being an SS officer. So it means that, you know, we can't reduce somebody to one element of their life. Yeah? That people are multifaceted, very complex. We can't really reduce them to, you know, one facet like that. Okay, then the second part of the answer is when we're talking about equanimity, we're talking about our attitude. How we act towards the person is going to depend on what the situation is, and also on social roles. So feeling equanimity does not mean that we act the same way around everybody. Okay? We can have equal open-hearted care and concern for everybody, but it doesn't mean you ask a stranger into your house to stay for 6 months. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you know, let a stranger walk your child to school or whatever. You know, we go according to social situations. We may have equanimity for everybody, but it doesn't mean you trust a 2-year-old with matches. Yeah. So we have to respond to people according to the different circumstance and the different situations, and respond in a helpful way and an appropriate way. But we don't act equally towards everybody. Okay? But we still can have equal-hearted care and concern for everybody. And sometimes that will help us stretch the boundaries of those social roles. Because sometimes, you know, people get really stuck in their social role. And yeah, one of my teachers, I heard a story once. You know, when they had fled into India, and some lepers invited him to come and have lunch, you know, when they were traveling. And of course his attendants are, no, you can't go, you have lunch with the lepers. And Geshe-la went anyway. Yeah. So, you know, the power of his mind being unbiased, he could stretch those relationships and, you know, teach his attendants something at the same time. Okay. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
I have a question. I think that it's challenging as we start to let go of attachments, how people can start to view you, because you don't want to let go of your sense of your identity of who you are, but that's sometimes part of what you're letting go. So there's this kind of aloofness that starts to happen. And how can you stay connected to, you know, ultimately family, loved ones, this feeling of connectedness or interdependency, but at the same time not detached but unattached.
Okay. So you're getting more into Dharma, your mind's beginning to change, it's beginning to open up, you're not having so much of the attachment and anger and things like that before, and your interests are changing. So the things you used to do before with friends, maybe you're not quite so interested, you know, you're not quite so interested and involved in the family drama of the week. Yeah. Everybody's going, but wait a minute, you've got to be in, you know, this episode of the family drama. You always have been. You can't back out now. Yeah. Or your old friends are going, well, wait a minute, we always used to meet at the bar and have a good time. How come you don't want to meet at the bar anymore? Or we always used to go out to movies. Yeah. How come you don't want to do that anymore? And so we begin to feel a little bit like, how do I fit in here? Yeah. This is totally normal. Yeah. Everybody goes through it at one point or another. Yeah. So there's two things going on here. One is how other people are seeing us. The second is how we're changing in how we relate, how we see ourselves and how we relate to other people. So there's an adjustment going on here. We aren't the same person as we were before. And so, like you said, sometimes we're giving up a little bit of our identities, and other people don't know what to do with that. They want to put us back in the box where we always have been. And we're saying, no, I'm not going in that box. I'm not that person anymore. And yet we want to remain connected with them. But also from our side, we're wondering, how do I remain connected? Because we used to always go out to the cinema and watch all these movies filled with sex and violence and have such a good time. And actually, I'm tired of movies with sex and violence. I don't want to go watch them. You know? I always used to go drinking and drugging with my friends, and I'm really not interested. I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. So how am I going to relate to those people? And then they're going, well, how are we going to relate to you too? Yeah. So there's a process that you know happens quite naturally, where everybody's adjusting. Yeah. And you know, we realize from our side we can still accept and, you know, appreciate these people, but also, you know, in some ways we are going different ways because we don't want to do the same things together anymore. And that's okay. And some of those people, you can find new things that you have in common besides drinking and drugging and watching violence and sex in the cinema. And you find new things that you have in common. You can share the friendships with. And other people, it just naturally happens that you go different ways. Yeah. With family members, where, you know, you don't go different ways so easily, but what you find is that as you're changing, the same old family dynamics can't keep happening. And it's actually sometimes a breath of fresh air. Because by your changing, then the whole thing changes. Yeah? If there's some dysfunctional, you know, family interaction. And then other times you realize, well, you know, like when I came home, and I told my parents I was a vegetarian. What? What are you going to eat when you come here? We won't be able to cook dinner for you. Yeah. I said, it's okay. There's lots of things I can eat that aren't meat, you know? And you actually make lots of things that aren't meat. Well, yeah, I guess you can have a salad. You know, every restaurant has a salad. You can have mashed potatoes and string beans. Yeah. So yeah, Mom, I can eat that. There's lots of stuff. You know, I haven't changed that much just because I don't eat meat. You know, so you know, you make some kind of adjustment. At first they're shocked, but then they realize, oh no, kind of it's still okay. My parents were quite upset when I became a Buddhist. Yeah. And then years later, you know, because you know now I don't eat meat, and I get up early, and you know I don't go out and do the same things with them, you know, singing and dancing and music and all that kind of stuff. And you know, and I wear these funny clothes, and what are they going to say to their friends, and everything like that. And then one time, after a few years, my mother kind of said to me that if I had come home as an Orthodox Jew, because the family's Jewish, if I had come home as an Orthodox Jew, she would have had just as much problem. So I thought, wow, you know, Mom she's grown up. Okay. Other questions, comments? Yeah.
Okay, the body speaks here, not me, for the benefit of the rest of us folks here. I have a concern that if thoughts come into the mind, particularly with other people,
If what
if thoughts come into the mind,
thoughts come to the mind.
how can the person tell the difference between being something from attachment, something that we might call in psychology being obsessive or compulsive, and how it's real love?
Okay. Attachment is when we think, that's the person who brings me happiness. I only want to be with them. Yeah?
Okay.
There's 7 billion others. One makes me happy. That's a little bit biased, don't you think? Yeah, so there's attachment working in there. Okay?
And that's the simple part.
Yeah. Yeah. And another way you can tell if there's attachment involved is if you have those feelings of love sometimes, and then when they do other things, then that feeling of love goes down, then you know there's attachment involved. Okay? Because what we're trying to cultivate is a sense, because love simply means the wish for somebody to have happiness and its causes. Yeah. So I want you to have happiness and the causes of happiness, no matter who you are, no matter how you act, especially towards me, center of the universe. Yeah. But when, at a certain point, I don't want you to have happiness and its causes because the way you are acting towards me, center of the universe. Okay, then that doesn't really fulfill the definition of love, does it? Okay? Yeah. So actual genuine love is really difficult. Probably what we feel is often a combination, some love, a lot of attachment. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is make the relationships more love, less attachment. Okay? Yeah.
So, just recently started being a better new Buddhist and starting to meditate. Sorry, I have laryngitis.
Oh.
Meditate in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted, just very new to it, it's nice to wake up early and sort of do a meditation, but I wanted to get a bigger picture of how to sort of take the next step, make it a habit, and how to contemplate different things so I could make more meaning of the day.
Yeah, okay. So how to contemplate, how to do different kinds of meditations and so on. Okay, good question. That's very nice that you really make a steady daily practice. It'd be a great benefit to you. Yeah. In the Tibetan tradition, we do many different kinds of meditation. One kind of meditation is called checking or analytic meditation. And what we do there is there's a topic and we think about different points in it. Okay? So it's, meditating doesn't mean just having no thoughts. It can also involve learning how to contemplate something using correct thoughts. So, one way, okay, I'm going to do an advertisement. There's a book out there called Guided Meditations on the Stages of the Path. And that's one way to start, because there is, within the book, one of the chapters, there's the meditation outline for different topics on the Lamrim. Lamrim means the stages of the path. So there's meditation outlines, and there's a CD with recording where you are led through the meditation. Yeah. So that's very, very helpful to learn how to do the meditations, as you can just put on your earphones and sit and be led through the meditation. As you learn how to do that kind of meditation, then you'll become able to take a book that you're reading, let's say one of His Holiness Dalai Lama's books, and make read something and make an outline of it, and then do your meditation on that, going through the different points, thinking about them in relationship to your own life. And then when you get some kind of feeling about the meaning of, what the Buddha or His Holiness is explaining, then you try and keep your mind on that conclusion without letting your mind waver, but to stay single-pointedly on, whatever conclusion you reach.
Well, that's interesting. It's I'm a scientist also, but that's very much like a scientific process where you kind of weed through different hypotheses, and then when you think you're close to something, then you focus your experiments more carefully on the question. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
I find that I still have a abundant number of disturbing thoughts, and nothing like extreme, but just disturbing. And I contemplate on them, and it's like, where is that coming from? And I'm like, this is so not Buddha nature, and
bad person I am.
No, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing the best as I am in this moment, so I'm kind of, but still sometimes I'm just like, my gosh, like, humanity, it's just really an obstacle for me. So my question is, as far as just disturbing thoughts, overall, when do they stop?
You're talking about like judgmental, critical mind, or what are you talking about?
Or just anything, I guess, just negative thoughts. Like so I have a little scenario. So there's these parking spaces that are all, for my building. And there was someone in them that does not live in my building and parks not just in one, but in between, taking up 2 spaces.
Oh, can you imagine?
And I parked somewhere else, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to leave a nice, mindful, compassionate line. And so then I see that the note, which was dear neighbor, you're currently in 2 spots. If you could be more mindful next time and only use 1, that would be great, resident such and such. I thought it was the best I could do at that moment. So then I come back, the next day, and I see the note is gone. And then I was just like, I just thought of doing something not nice, which of course I know I'm not gonna do it, but I was like, why do I even have this thought? Just deal. And
yeah. Okay, so we often have kind of thoughts that seemingly come out of nowhere, that we're really hoping nobody's omniscient, nobody's yeah? Like, I don't want anybody to know that thought just came into my mind. Okay, so, yeah, first thing is to know we all have them, right? Everybody have those kind of thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have them. Yeah. So nothing unusual. It's not just you. Misery loves company. Yeah. But also to realize these thoughts happen because of habitual habit. Habitual habit, that's great. These thoughts happen because of habit, because we have, whether it's in this life or previous lives, we just have familiarity with thinking vengeful thoughts. Now, we did a lot in previous lives, we do a lot in this life, just kind of mean, nasty thoughts. Right? Yeah? And so there's a habit there. And thus, even sometimes when we don't even want to think like that, just by the force of habit, that kind of thought comes up. So the thing is just, when it comes up, just to say, oh, it's a thought that came up because I haven't, but I'm not going to follow it. I'm not going to sit and ponder it and think, well, how shall I slash his tires? Shall I use this to slash them or that to slash them? Or shall I have the car towed? Because anyway, if I slash the tires, then he's going to take up 2 parking spaces for a long time. Maybe I should have his car towed. Yeah. So, so just say, okay, because of past habit, this kind of thing comes in my mind. I'm not going to feed it. I'm not going to nurture that kind of thinking. I'm just going to stop it there. But I'm also not going to get all tense and wigged out about it. Like, oh, how dare I think something like this? I'm evil. I'm a catastrophe. This is horrible. This is shameful. Get that thought out of there. Because, the more you do that, then of course, the thought is like a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go, I got you. Yeah. So you just notice it, let it go. Or sometimes, what I find very helpful is the taking and giving. As I'll say, may all, because everybody has this problem of these unwanted thoughts coming in their mind. So may I take all of their suffering from unwanted kinds of thoughts upon myself, and may I give them my happiness. Yeah? And that works. That's also very, very good to do. Okay. Yeah, this will be the last question.
Well, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. So, I'm not sure if the goal is to not have feelings.
Oh no, you have feelings.
Let me keep going. And even feelings of anger, I don't want to act on those in an angry action, but sometimes those feelings, I can soften it by calling it indignation or something, but sometimes feelings of anger come up because someone is suffering needlessly and I'm feeling called to act on that.
Right.
And so I don't want to be aloof and not having an emotional reaction to my environment. I actually want to feel those feelings so that I know, am I heading in the right direction or not the right direction?
Okay. So you don't want to become like a cold piece of stone.
And I'm okay with my anger. I just want to act on it in a compassionate way.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Is anger the only thing that will let you know that something's wrong and that somebody else is suffering?
Absolutely not, no.
No, what else can you feel?
Well, I can feel love, I can feel sadness, I can feel... What are you getting at?
Yeah. In other words, when somebody else is suffering or when there's some injustice, you don't have to feel angry in response in order to act and to intervene. You could feel compassion for both parties. Yeah. Do you think you would be thinking that you would have a clearer mind if you felt compassion than if you felt anger? Yeah. Because often when we're angry, we don't think so clearly, so our actions are often confused as well. So compassion can be just as strong a motivator. And it doesn't have bad side effects. Let's sit quietly for a couple of minutes. Okay, so in this meditation, we'll just a short time, but think about something you heard today, whether it's the bias, attachment, and anger, or the questions we just had, something, and think about it in terms of your life and how you can really bring it into your life and change your mind. And then let's rejoice that we were able to spend the afternoon together doing something really meaningful and useful. And rejoice at the merit, the positive energy we created as individuals and as a group. And then let's send that out into the universe with our prayers and aspirations that all beings be free from the mental afflictions and have all the conducive circumstances and take advantage of them to be able to practice and transform their minds and become fully awakened. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Kurukulla, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May it have no decline, but increase forevermore. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.